Hi, my name's Phil Berwick from Living Tree Care, and we're on the campus of beautiful Jefferson College today. We're going to be discussing proper pruning of trees. This year in Missouri, there's been some major ice storm, and last year some significant shear winds that damaged or destroyed tens of thousands of trees across Missouri. I know that more than 1,000 tree companies from out of state descended on the St. Louis area to clean up in more ways than one. And people are wondering, is my tree safe? Does it have to come down? Or can it be pruned? Can it be saved? We'll talk about that, but more importantly, we'll discuss pruning trees from early on to create and promote structurally sound scaffold branches to ensure the health and longevity of a tree, because trees are the air we breathe. Why do we prune trees? A properly pruned tree is going to be a structurally sounder tree and is going to be less prone to storm damage. We prune deadwood out of a tree. We thin a tree, minimizing the wind sail. We prune the lower branches. It's called raising the crown. In the woods, trees somehow manage themselves, but in an open yard, they become unruly and must be pruned. Before we start up a chainsaw, though, we should have a good reason for what we're taking off. Tree trimmers used to be called tree surgeons because they were careful and methodical about what they pruned. Today, we're called arborists, and a certified arborist especially should have a knowledge of the characteristics and the design of the tree they're pruning. What do we prune out of trees? When I'm stumped, pardon the pun, I go for the obvious: deadwood. Inside, crossing branches, house clearance. You know, trees were designed to grow into the sky, and sometimes out of fear, people get a little too radical and have them topped. But that creates hollows and rapid growth that's a lot weaker than the original wood. There's a way to reduce a tree and keep it safe without hacking it. Someone once saw the sign on my truck and they said, "Arborist was an arborist. I can cut wood, I can cut trees." Well, cutting wood and pruning trees are two different things. You do cut wood, but you prune trees. Where do we prune the tree? That's a good question, because branches have what's called a branch collar. I call it the healing zone. Now, trees don't heal, they compartmentalize, they seal. Hopefully people heal. It's better to make several small cuts than a large flush cut, because we've cut off the healing zone and a hollow can develop. So it's important where we prune the tree. When do we prune a tree? Well, when the tree is dormant, that's the optimum time to prune a tree. Even a properly pruned tree is going to be in shock its first season, so if we can get to it before the sap starts rising, we're doing well. But if we must prune a tree during the growing season, especially if it's an elm or a red oak like this tree, we need to cover the wound with tree paint to block the chance of it acquiring a vascular disease. But during dormancy, it's the best time, and a good arborist will know what needs to be pruned off the tree, with or without the leaves on the tree. Now, we've talked about the why, what, where, and when of tree pruning. We're getting into the how. Now, I like to use sharp hand tools, chainsaw on occasion. But remember, we're trying to make smaller rather than larger pruning wounds. We start with the undercut. Then the second part is the top cut. It's made right on top or a little in front of it. See how it jumped off? The final cut, remember, needs to come just in front of the healing zone or branch collar. All right, the fun starts. We're going to take the why, what, where, when, and how to trim a tree. We're going to take all the factors we discussed, clean out the dead wood, do crown cleaning, thinning, raising of the canopy, and make a gnarly looking corkscrew willow look nice. Taking some interior branches out. doing some thinning. Try not to leave any stubs. Making a little bit of an angle cut, not making a flush cut. We're going to prune this deadwood off. And the branch collar is barely noticeable, but it's noticeable enough. The tree will seal that wound. I've raised the canopy on that side, so this side needs to come up a little bit. I can hold on to the branch and not let it rip down the trunk. But remember, if it's too big for me to hold, I need to make that 3-point cut. It's better to make 2 wounds close together than one large final cut, because they'll both be able to heal from the edges. One large cut, and the wound is going to take much longer to heal. Well, we're finished. We pruned, we thinned, we deadwooded, mainly for aesthetics, mainly to make this gnarly looking tree look nice. We just finished pruning the corkscrew willow for looks. We have to prune the Bradford pear and thin it and reduce the wind sail, because if we don't, it's going to end up looking like this. You can take a lot out of a tree, but keep it looking like a tree. Just because there's a chance of this branch ripping down the larger limb, I'm making that 3-point cut. Undercut, top cut, and final cut. Slowing down at the end of it so I don't rip. In some species, especially a Bradford pear, there can be too many leaders in a tree. There's a form of pruning we didn't discuss called subjugating. I'm going to remove this leader here, allowing this leader room to grow, with the idea that in the future we may take off this entire branch. Remember, undercut, top cut, final cut. By the way, look at this on the trunk. If you're ever wondering what these holes are, especially if they're in a pattern, it's a sapsucker perching early in the morning and liking the sap on the tree. It's usually not detrimental to the tree. Tree care is an art and a science. Thanks for letting me talk to you about trees and showing you a little bit about how to prune. We're all keepers of the earth, you know. I'm Phil Berwick from Living Tree Care.